Good morning, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to our event, the 22nd virtual talk, Creating Active Readers, Bridging the Gap Between Home and School Literacy, hosted by English Literature, Krida Wacana Christian University, and English Language Education, Sampoerna University. In collaboration with Indonesian Extensive Reading Association, IERA, and supported by the Extensive Reading Foundation and Regional English Language Office, RELO. First of all, my name is Emanuela Christine, as your MC today, and I'm one of the lecturers in ukrida-English Literature Department, and it's such an honor to welcome you here in this event. I would like to welcome the Rector of Sampoerna University, Dr. Wadi Yuti, President of Sampoerna University, Dr. Marcel Schott, Vice Rector of Academic Affairs, Dr. Supriyatna, and Dr. Lydia Sandra, SPSI, SCOM, MCOM, MSc, the Vice Rector of Academic Affairs, Krida Wacana University. Dr. Bradley Horn, as RELO Director and Acting Cultural Affairs Officer of the United States Embassy, Jakarta, and IERA Chairperson, Fenty Lydia, Ph.D. from Indonesian Extensive Reading Association, IERA. We would like to open our event today with great opening remarks. The first opening remark is going to be delivered by the Vice Rector of Academic Affairs, Sampoerna University, Dr. Supriyatna. Time and screen is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera for all of us. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today. We are pleased to be able to welcome those of you that have been with us for the series of virtual talk. On behalf of Sampoerna University and Krishna Wacana Christian University, or UKRIDA, I would like to extend our warm welcome to all participants of Virtual Talk 22nd. In particular, it is my great pleasure to welcome the President of Sampoerna University, the Rector of Sampoerna University, and also RELO Director, Vice Rector UKRIDA, and also, of course, to all the distinguished speakers that will present their insights in this talk. The first one is Dr. Yuchi Wang from Feng Chia University, Taiwan, Ibu Pratiwi Retnaningdyah, Ph.D. from Universitas Negeri Surabaya, Dr. Yona Primadesi from Universitas Negeri Padang, Abinaya Ghina Jamela, young author of founder Sahabat Gorga. It is a great pleasure for us, Sampoerna University and UKRIDA, to be the host for virtual talk, which has become one of our signature programs. This talk is also supported by Extensive Reading Foundation and Regional English Language Office, or RELO. Thank you very much to EIRF and also RELO for always supporting to succeed this program. Several studies actually have shown that reading literacy level of school students is affected by at least two main factors: family and school environment. The home literacy environment and joint parent-child book reading are indeed key factors in children's language and literacy acquisition. In the case of Indonesia, however, only 51% of parents who regularly spend their time reading books with their children. So based on the result of this study, it is encouraged for parents to actively involve and to facilitate their children in improving their literacy skills to prepare them for success in school. During this pandemic outbreak, parents have a crucial role in helping their children to improve their skills in reading literacy. They are also expected to collaborate with teachers to promote their children to become active readers, and one of the strategies is through extensive reading. In this talk, I believe that the speakers will share their insights and experiences on how to apply extensive reading at home and schools in creating active readers. This strategy will bridge the gap between home and school literacy, and we really hope that there will be active participation from the audience to make this program more meaningful for everyone who is in this virtual room. Again, thank you for coming and have a fruitful session. And all to the committee who has made this possible, congratulations, and this is a really great job. Enjoy the talk, and I believe you will gain something in this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bapak Dr. Supriyatna. Please welcome the second opening remarks from Dr. Bradley Horn as Reload Director, Acting Cultural Affairs Officer of the United States Embassy, Jakarta. Dr. Horn, time and screen is yours.
Thank you, Boo. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Selamat pagi. I hope everyone is doing well, staying healthy during these difficult times. And I would like to thank everybody for making time on your Saturday mornings to join us for another extensive reading around the world and IERA virtual workshop. I would like to echo Bapak Supriyatna in also acknowledging and thanking the officials from Sampoerna University and Ukrida who have joined us this morning, and giving, on behalf of the Regional English Language Office and the entire US Embassy, our heartfelt thanks to Ukrida and Sampoerna for hosting today's event, as well as to our friends at IERA for continuing to partner with us on this most beneficial and impactful series that we've been doing, and of course, a most needed series during this pandemic time. If you'll allow me, I'd like to talk a little bit about today's topic and why I find it so meaningful. And when I read the topic, of course, I was extremely excited about creating active readers and talking about the home literacy bridge, the home school literacy bridge. It has been a passion of mine for quite some time, not only professionally, but as a parent. And many of us as educators also wear a second hat as parents. And so again, forgive me, but I would like to talk a little bit about how this notion of bridging home and school language has been important in my own family, and how I think it might reflect on the topics today and what we're facing both in Indonesia, in the United States, and around the world as we try to promote children's reading. I think quite often when we talk about bridging this gap, we imagine that it might be one way. And of course, we as Bapak Supriyatna said, we're looking quite frequently at trying to encourage parents to take an active role in especially early childhood literacy and building preschool literacy practices. While that is a valiant effort and a necessary effort, I would argue that sometimes we have to take a step back and realize that everybody on this webinar today has the benefit of being educated has the benefit of most likely being readers ourselves. And when we're thinking about encouraging parents to participate in their children's literacy practices, we may be thinking through the lens of being educated readers. And of course, that is not always the case with the parents of the students who we ultimately are trying to help. I know you're all aware of this. And oftentimes, I think that speaking as an American and thinking about my children's development as young readers in the American context, there might be an assumption here in Indonesia that, well, everybody in the US is you know, has a basic education level and are active readers, but that is, I can assure you that is not true. And in our own hometown, where my children's earliest reading experiences occurred, we had a very diverse population, but a population and in our neighborhood that was represented by lower socioeconomic status families, especially where I come from in Arizona. There were many families who are either immigrants from Mexico, so they are not native English speakers at home, or we also have a very large Native American population in our hometown. And so also parents who come from lower SES backgrounds who do not necessarily read frequently at home. And a central part in my own children's early childhood literacy development, and I think in our community literacy development that served to bridge home and school practices was in fact our library, our community library. And that's something that in the Indonesian context and in the discussions I've had, I really, you know, I think it's a link that may not be as common here, but I know we have reading circles, I know we have reading rooms, but in our context, we had a community library, and the head librarian there, Mr. Bill, almost became a member of our family because he would host a children's reading night, basically every week. And he would perform, he was a singer, he would do games and activities, and we would take our children there from basically the age of just a few months, very obviously pre-literate, pre-verbal stages in their development. And Mr. Bill would read to the children. And I think, of course, we would continue reading to our children at home, but for other parents that would not come from such print-rich environments at home, let's say, this was a necessary connection and for their children to bridge the pre-literate period going into school. Now, that was important also in my children's literacy development because they immediately associated reading with fun and reading with pleasure. And that's something we frequently talk about in terms of inculcating literate practices in young people. They're not going to want to read if we are modeling effortful practices. And reading is initially very effortful. We need to make the connection to the reward in reading. And so those early exposures to reading as pleasure and reading as fun were critical in both of my daughters' emergence as young readers. However, I would also like to say, where I was saying that we often see the gap as one way, in fact, I don't think it's that either. I think it's two-way because, of course, school needs to build on and reinforce practices that develop in the home, but also not get in the way sometimes. And where I'm thinking about with that, my younger daughter actually, I would say that we would describe her as a reluctant reader for much of her life, because even though she enjoyed being read to, and she enjoyed the times that we spent reading together, you know, it was easier to be read to, and the reward was much more immediate. And when she started in her primary education, formal literacy instruction, it became again much more effortful, and the gratification was much less immediate. So she had been a reluctant reader throughout her primary education, through early middle school, and then something changed. And quite frankly, it happened actually in the last year. And we're not exactly sure why. Some of it may actually be the pandemic, but when I've talked to her, I said, in the past year, she's gone, through the roof in terms of how much she's been reading. And she's certainly not a reluctant reader. She's an avid reader, almost to a point where it's gotten, she waits for school to be over so she can read. She waits for classes to be over so she can read. So it's turned into something of so pleasurable that school is taking a back seat to reading, which I actually think is fantastic. But when I've talked to her about it, one of the things she kind of hit on when we were talking about it was that reading before was always boring, which again, I think means effortful. But in the course of this year, or in the last year, she realized that when she was given the autonomy to select what she wanted to read, and she had choice in the matter, she could find things that were actually very interesting to her. And it started with things like the Harry Potter series, and it started with a number of different series, young adult series that she got into. And most recently, it's bridged to what we would say is, more classic literature, like Jane Austen and things like that, which is fascinating. In the past school year, she read over 113 books, I believe. She stopped, now that we're in the summer holiday period, she stopped counting because she no longer has to count. But the point being, I think prior to this aha moment for her, where she realized that she has the ability to choose things that are interesting to her, reading was a schooled practice, and it was effortful and not fun. Somehow the fun that she had as a small child being read to ended when it became a school task, a school assignment. That's why I say we need to be careful about not getting in the way of children's interest in reading, but finding creative ways, again, to bridge the joy of the early co-reading and then creating independent active readers. And I think also with my story, one of the things I want to point out is when we talk about creating active readers, sometimes we may think that it's a one-size-fits-all approach, and that we just have to find the strategies that would apply across the class. But as we see from my daughter's case, it took years, and it took, even though she had great literacy instruction, it took time for her to realize what she could get out of reading. And so I also want everyone to remember that literacy acquisition is an individual, it's a deeply personal process as well, that should involve, yes, family and school, teachers, but also community. Sorry, I've taken up a lot of time with my opening remarks, which should have been brief, but I want you to know it's a deeply personal and meaningful topic that we're listening to, we'll be addressing today. And on behalf of the Regional English Language Office of the U.S. Embassy, again, I am deeply grateful to IERA, to Sampoerna University, and to ukrida for hosting this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Horn. Let's move along. Prior to the webinar, there are some rules and regulations that should be followed by all participants. While the speakers are presenting, all participants should turn off their audio to maintain the continuity of this event. In the Q&A session, participants may ask some questions to the speakers by typing out the questions in the chat box or using the raise hand features. Questions will be selected by the moderator and delivered to the speakers. At the end of the session, all participants have to complete the exit form before ending the sessions, and the exit form will be shared later on. Today, proudly we have invited some keynote speakers who are going to share their knowledge and practices around extensive reading, and here they are. Dr. Yuchi Wang from Feng University, Pratiwi Retnaningdyah Ph.D. from Universitas Negeri Surabaya and IERA representation, Dr. Yona Primadesi M.Hum from Universitas Negeri Padang, and Abinaya Ghina Jamela, founder of Sahabat Gorga. Moving right along, today's agenda will be led by a moderator. She is a faculty member in English Language Education, Sampoerna University. She is graduated from American Studies Gajah Mada University and has interests in language, literature, literacy, and culture. Would you please welcome Ibu Adesti Komalasari, MA. Ibu Adesti, the time and screen is yours.
Okay, thank you, Miss Leah, for the wonderful introduction. Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing? It is a great moment to be able to see you all here, and hopefully we are now in happy and healthy states. Yeah. Given the fact that some things is going on out there, but so I'm so grateful to see you here in this moment. And I'm Adesti Komalasari from Sampoerna University, and I will be the moderator today. Today we are here on this beautiful Saturday to attend virtual talk, the 22nd, Creating Active Readers, Bridging the Gap Between Home and School Literacy. For the past 2 years, many aspects in our life have evolved so much. And in education sector itself, the learning modes, the techniques, the strategies have also shifted from face-to-face to remote and online learning. And for sure, we have faced challenges to make the literacy and learning at home as effective as they were at schools. And we keep finding strategies to keep the learning experiences to improve our and learner skills meaningful and enjoyable. And looking at the importance of having the discussion among us, today we have 4 wonderful speakers that will share their expertise and experiences on bridging the gap between home and school literacy. And allow me to introduce the first speaker, Dr. Yuchi Wang. Hello, Dr. Yuchi Wang.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Great, nice to see you. Allow me to read some of the bio of yours, yeah? Okay. Dr. Yuchi Wang is an assistant professor of Foreign Language Center in Feng University in Taiwan. She has published many journal articles whose topics are around learning English and the perception towards language and cultural diversity. And today, Dr. Wang is going to share her perspectives on creating active readers, bridging the gap between home and school literacy, and also will elaborate some tools for home and school literacy. Dr. Wang, time is yours.
Okay, thank you. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for attending this virtual talk. My name is Yuchi Wang, and then I'm an assistant professor in Feng University. I'm teaching in the Foreign Language Center. And it's my honor to be here to share this topic today. So I'm going to share my screen with everyone. Okay. So I'm sorry, no, not this one. Okay. So I'm going to share my slide with everyone today. Can you see my screen? Yes?
Yes, Dr. Wang, we can see the screen.
So I'm going to share the topic for today. It is creating active readers, bridging the gap between home and school literacy. So in my talk today, I will be covering the following three points. So the first one is, what is literacy? I think this is a really good question. And then Dr. Horn has mentioned about we need to maybe think from a different perspective when we are thinking about literacy today. And the other one is helpful tools and activities for home and school literacy, and also some insights into literacy education from my own teaching experiences or from my own learning process. Okay, so first of all, I would like everyone to take a moment to think about this question. So what is literacy? If you are going to use your own word to describe your understanding of literacy, what is that about? I will give everyone maybe 5 seconds to think about your own definition. What would you say about literacy? And I think this is a very important words for today's topic. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of my answers. So oftentimes, these are the answers I receive from most of the people, even educators. They will consider literacy as reading and writing and maybe other aspects. Okay, but if I'm going to ask you the follow-up question, reading about what and writing about what? I think this is a question we have to think about. So if we only focus on reading, okay, so let me give you some example of what my reading look like today, okay, in students' reading activities every day. So we probably will see reading like this. They are reading textbook, they are reading journal articles, they are reading all the information from different resources. And if you have younger kids, we might think reading as reading to the sides, labels on cereal box, or they are reading all kinds of like words in your house or like from instructions. So this can be one form of reading. And also nowadays, because we are learning and studying from home, so students might learn from their computer, laptop, or like, their PC. So digital reading is another reading. So do you think they are applying the same approach or strategies when they are reading printed books or like reading from their iPad or a smartphone or even their PC? And then the other way of reading, and it is happening almost 24/7, is the messages students receive from their Facebook, Twitter page, or the Instagram page, or like Pinterest. So students are using all of these social media to make sense of the world and make connection to the world as well. And the last one I want to share with you is a little bit controversial, but maybe parents, you might not agree with me, or educators. The other one is video game literacy. If you think about the video games, so one time I went to my friend's house and I saw her son was like playing online video games, and I was checking all the information on the same screen. So if you can take a look at these screens, they are massive information. So you need to make sense of the semiotic symbols, and also you need to know the meaning of it, and you need to use the meaning to make sense of the world inside the rules of the video games. And you are going to use these rules to play games, and sometimes you have to cooperate with people from different parts of the world, and probably you are using some of the language like inside the game. So if you are thinking about all the process of video games from a literacy perspective, I think it is kind of amazing. Okay, so students, I'm not a fan of video games players, but I found this astonishing. If my students, they can like make sense of this world. So I want you to think this as different forms of literacy activities that's happening, and is a kind of reality in nowadays society. And also I post a photo of the book. So the Professor James Porges, so he is a well-known professor who has a lot of study about online video game literacy. And if you're interested, you can check his work. And then, so I would like to read aloud this quote. Okay, so if we are thinking about different forms of reading like this, so I think about how difficult it must be to read even 5 pages of an 800-page college textbook when you have been used to spending most of your time switching between the digital activity and another in a matter of seconds. It really highlights the challenges students and faculty both face in this current area. So I think this is a disadvantage if we are going to ask our students to sit in and then read for 1 hour or even 30 minutes. Sometimes it's almost impossible because their attention span is becoming shorter and shorter. But I also want you to think our own reading behaviors. Sometimes when I was reading or when I was doing my writing, and then I will probably digress a little bit and to listen to some music, or I will just try to check my email or check my line message or Facebook message. So even we as adults, as educators, we do the same thing. So even though we think this is a disadvantage, but I would like to take this great opportunity for educators or like caretakers. Maybe we need to consider another definition or updated our understanding of literacy in the modern society. Okay, so I think this is a good point for us to redefine it. So I would like to provide a little bit updated definition of literacy. So of course, reading and writing and language learning is the crucial elements of literacy education, but I believe there are also other components and domains of literacy education, just like Dr. Homa has mentioned, just like that. Literacy is also about affective domains. So when you are reading the books, you are putting yourself into the characters' shoes, and then you are engaged in the story. So you feel sad, and then also when you are reading to someone, or you are doing a share reading, a pair reading with someone, you are sharing your connection, and also you are building up your connection with your family or with your students. And reading is also about critical thinking, because there are massive information we receive every day. But we also need to teach our students to make sense of the world, and they need to know where to identify facts and opinion, and where can they find the reliable resources. I think these are also very important skills for students when they are doing real life reading. And I also believe that reading is a social practice, even though I totally agree that reading is an individual practice. But think about if you finish a book and if you like it very much, you want to share this like good book with your friends, right? Or if you don't like this book at all, you hate the characters, you probably will call your mom or like call your friends to say that, please don't read this book. It's like after reading the movie. So I think this is a social practice. Through sharing the information, and we are building up our interaction with other people, and then we are getting more motivation for reading. And then the last one is reading is literacy is also multi-modal. So multi-modal means we use multiple modes to help us to convey the meanings and understand the meanings. So sometimes even when we finish reading a book, we don't have to use written forms to show our understanding of the book. Sometimes it can be a music, it can be a performance, it can be a dance, or you can read a poem, or you can create some other stuff to show other people you understand about this. So I'm going to give you some example in the following some slides. So I would say that literacy means that we are using not only reading and writing and also language learning, but also other domains to help us make sense of the world and the people around us. I want to give literacy as a like broad and macro perspective of understanding, okay? So one way that we can bridge the gap between home and school literacy, I believe, is read extensively. So what is, so there is a term called extensive reading. So you need to read a lot. So for second and foreign language learners, extensive reading can refer to students read extensively and read large quantity of book and other materials that are well within their linguistic competence. And they select their reading materials themselves and read at their own speed. So these are from the well-known ER educators and scholars. So there are some important keywords like read extensively, read large quantity of book within their linguistic competence, and then they select their reading materials, okay, just like Dr. Holmes told her, and then they read at their own speed. So these are important principles for extensive reading. And also Dr. Day and Benford, they propose 10 important extensive reading principle for if you are going to run a ER program. And I think it is also applicable if you are doing the same thing at your house or with your children. So I'm going to go over them. So the first one is the reading material is easy, and then a variety of reading material on a wide range of topics must be available, and learners choose what they want to read, and learners read as much as possible. And the purpose of reading is usually related to pleasure, information, and general understanding. reading is its own reward, and reading speed is usually faster rather than slower. And reading is individual and silent, and teacher-oriented, or we can say adult-oriented, and guide their children or students. And then adults, we are role model of readers. Okay, so these are the 10 principles. But let me remind you, these are guidance. You don't have to follow all of them because it depends on your teaching and also home literacy settings. So take my university, for example. So we are implementing ER in my freshman English program. So it's a requirement. So it's part of our grades. So of course, my students, they never think that reading is about pleasure. And because it's about their grade, they want to get higher grades. And then, so reading is not its own reward. Maybe yes, for some students, but some students, they think it is kind of torture for them because they have to spend a lot of time outside the classroom to read. And so it depends on your own situation. So you can find the principles that suits your teaching or learning scenarios. And then in the following slides, I would like to share some of the tools that we can do in home or school literacy. So let me remind you a little bit, because I'm not sure the age of your students or children's, the age of your student children and their language proficiency level. So I kind of include both resources for younger kids, and then also some of them are for elder kids. Okay, so I would like to, so if we are talking about materials, okay, the first thing that comes to my mind is like picture books or children's literature. But I think even though we think they are easier books because they are shorter and thinner, but I think some of the vocabulary and also sentence pattern inside children's book is actually not very easy. So I would argue that children's book is for everyone, not only for younger kids, but because they have a lot of pictures, so it is easier for younger students to make sense of the meaning of the story, okay, and it's interactive. And so after reading children's books, probably they move to chapter books. And then our ultimate goal is to help our students to become the real life readers so they can read authentic materials. Okay, but for foreign language and second language like us in Taiwan as a situation, it is almost impossible to jump from here to here. There must be something that we teachers or educators or parents have to do to help our students, because English is not immersed in our language learning situation. So one way we can do it to promote extensive reading is by using graded readers. So graded readers, they are a simplified version of the story. They also have story plot, and they came from different genres. And then there are simplified versions which were adapted from classical works or like films or documentary, but they are easier and they have different levels for students with different language proficiency levels. So students, they can choose the book that match their proficiency level. So this is usually designed for language learners. Okay, and then they are different publishers. They have different graded readers. So these are the printed materials. And if we are thinking about online reading or digital reading, there are also different kinds of material we can use. So these are the websites that sometimes they provide free resources, especially in the past 1 year. I think a lot of countries, they open a lot of resources, free resources for educators and parents to help their students read at home. I didn't try all of them, but some of them, they still have some good resources for English if you are looking for English books, okay? And most of them are for younger kids. And the other thing that there are still some paid resources we can find. So for example, in my university, we are using X Reading. So this is like online reading platforms. So students, they can find all kinds of graded readers from this website, and they can do the same thing. They read online, they can read through their iPad or their smartphone, and then they can also listen to the story. There are more functions, but basically the reading process is the same. Okay, so if you're interested, you can check the website. And then, so these are there are still a lot of online resources. They are not perfect, but I think we are lucky enough that we can find these resources online. Okay, And then next, I'm going to share a little bit of the activities that we can do at home or in our own classrooms. So we can, I would like to focus them in different language skills because I'm a language educator. So I would like to focus on reading, speaking, and maybe a little bit writing, and also a little bit incorporation of technology. So when we talk about reading, I usually separate them into pre-reading, during reading, and after reading activities. And of course, these activities you can use in different situations. It depends on how you design your activity.
Dr. Wang, I'm sorry to interrupt. We have 5 minutes remaining. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are guided readers, guided questions, comprehension check, and story prediction. So I would like to give you some examples. So for example, I asked my student to read one chapter, and after reading the chapter, I asked them to find pictures that best describe the buildings inside the book. So this can be called, I call this activity as picture the story or something like that. And then I ask students to find photos. So these are the results from my students. You can find some similar patterns from their pictures. There are 2-floor houses, and then they are not very young, very new. They are old, a little bit old, and red bricks, and then there are vines surrounding around the houses. And you can use this kind of activity to check students' reading comprehension. And this is also one kind of multi-model aspects of literacy education. And the other things I would like to do is like on speaking. So I would like to introduce, maybe a lot of you are familiar with the reading aloud and reader theaters. So these are the benefits, okay? It promotes fluency, and then they can read with their expression, emotion, and it also helps build reading confidence. So let me show you real quick about, so this is reader theater. So, okay. I'm sorry. Okay, so I will just play 30 seconds.
There once was a young girl much like you and me. Just like you, just like me. Guys, please let me narrate. Shh, please let her narrate. Excuse me, our job's an important job. Now, shh. Okay. She was much like you and me. She had problems at school. The usual kind. Come on, you know what they are. Bullying, tests, peer pressure, parents' expectations.
Okay, so this is from junior high school. And then the other one I would like to share with you, I would call this is kind of, I think, performance or stage. And this is from a book, I like it a lot. It's called I Want My Hat Back by John Clausen. Oh, can I hear the sound here? Okay, so it is something, okay. Okay, I'm going to stop here. So this is one example you can demonstrate like teaching speaking or like improving students speaking through reading. Okay, and then so these are 2 examples. And the reason why I would like to recommend this one is because students, they are reading something that it is predictable, and they are reading with a group of students, so they feel more comfortable doing this. Okay, and they can practice how to say it out loud, their fluency, and also their expression as well. And there are also different forms of multi-model aspects of literacy. So for example, you can ask your students to create a poster with a minimum words of the poster, and they have to explain why they are creating or design a poster in this way. So this can also improve their presentation skills as well. These are from my university students. And then, of course, writing, you can ask them to write like book reports. And this is kind of poster, and students that are working in the group, and they can talk a little bit about the characters, the summary, and the responses of the book. And then, of course, there are different kinds of activities we can find online. If the stories has a plot, They can do a story map. And then if you're working with younger kids or students, their language ability is not good enough, you can ask them to draw something. So they are using their multiple literacy skills to demonstrate their understanding about text. And of course, if you want to use a little bit of the technology online, you can ask students to write a real response and post it to the book review online, like Amazon.com, Goodreads. There are different kinds of platforms. We can help our students to get better understanding about and also it's also a social practice as well. Okay, and
Dr.
then the
Wang,
other thing
to interrupt, the time is up for the presentation.
Is off.
Yes, it's off. Yeah. Okay. But
so
perhaps you can give some conclusion of the presentation that you are going to.
Okay, I will spend 1 more minute. Okay, so there are also different technologies, and I'm happy to share my slides with you afterwards. And so sometimes like I would like to conclude my presentation by giving you some of my insights that I learned from my previous or like my teaching practices. So I think if we want to bridge the gap between home and school literacy, teacher, parents, or caretakers cooperation is especially the crucial key to encourage active readers. And reading is a social practice. So just start reading. And then if we don't have to find someone who is like great, we are all model of avid readers to our students, our kids. And then don't forget that literacy comes in various forms. So try to be more open-minded to all the texts that we can find in our daily life. And also we can look for some local resources for literacy opportunities in our society or some public library. And then also reading is a lifelong learning skills. So don't kill the fun of this, don't kill the fun of reading for your students or children. So I think this is the end of my presentation. I'm sorry I'm taking so much time, and I have some resources for both teachers and also parents. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wang. I'm so sorry to keep interrupting you for the time allotment. So what we can, we can make some takeaways from Dr. Wang's presentation is that even though reading is an individual experience, but to be able to comprehend and to connect the text to the world, the experience needs to be shared. And there are other types of literacy that need to be explored, like social media literacy, game literacy, and to make sense of the world and to connect with the world too. And we need to make use of any material available to meet the students' context and also to be mindful with their level. And then Dr. Wang also mentioned that to be able to reach that, the active reader with the enjoyable and meaningful reading experience, we need to also incorporate reading and writing, language learning, affective, critical thinking, social practice, and multimodal, because extensive reading is not always about books, but also if the students are more comfortable in extensive viewing, we can also make use of that. So that is why multimodal really takes an important role in creating an enjoyable and meaningful reading experiences. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Wang, for the wonderful shares. Yeah, and for the next speaker, I will invite Ms. Pratiwi Retnaningdyah, Ph.D. Hi, Ms. Tiwi.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you here. Okay. Allow me to introduce you to read some of your bio, ya, Ibu.
Okay, please do.
Okay, Miss Pratiwi Retnaningdyah, Ph.D. is a lecturer in English department in UNESA or Universitas Negeri Surabaya. She was also a secretary of Center for Women's Studies in UNESA. She has been focusing her areas of research on post-colonial literature, English language, literacy, and cultural studies. And when I took a sneak peek on her LinkedIn profile, I found out that Ms. Tiwi is also actually my senior, since she also took American Studies in Gajah Mada University.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
Yes, right. And in this virtual talk event, she will share her insights on the text connection, what it means really to connect the text for active readers, what strategies that fit best to connect the text. So Ms. Tiwi, the time is yours, and you have 20 minutes, and I will interrupt you in 5 minutes. Yeah, 4 minutes before the time is up. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for generous introduction, Abu Adesti, and also for the reminder of the time. So I'm just going to set my timer. so that I won't go over time. Yeah, so good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all, and I hope we stay safe and healthy, especially during this critical moment that is happening in this world. Just to bridge the topic that we just followed with Dr. Wang. Thank you very much, Dr. Wang, for a very insightful presentation. So I'm going to, I think to begin with, I'm going to highlight some takeaways that Dr. Wang has just mentioned, that to develop active readers, parents and of course teachers should be the role model. Yeah, so that a lot of references state that modeling is key to sustain silent reading and also reading aloud, of course. So that's one thing. And another thing is I especially like the idea that reading is a social practice. That has been one thing that I've been developing in the past 7 years or so. So while we know that literacy has always been seen as competence, yeah, but let's not forget the fact that to be able to develop competence, reading has to be practiced in our everyday life. So with that in mind, allow me to share my screen. So Bu Adesti and also the participants, my presentation is not really theoretical. I'm just going to share some useful and practical ways that we could do both at home with our kids and also with our students in our, if we teach in schools or universities, because we know that basically there are various strategies that we could use to develop students' reading competence and also to instill or to foster reading practice. So I'm just going to focus on one strategy, which is text connections. And since the title of today's virtual talk, number 22, is it's really nice, as Brad stated, creating active readers, bridging the gap between home and school literacy. So I'm hoping that my presentation will also be a bridge between Dr. Wang's presentation to introduce us to the idea of literacy and extensive reading, and also to the presentation that's coming up after me with Dr. Yona and her beloved daughter, Abinaya. So I really hope that Yona and Naya will actually be the spotlight. Yeah, so I don't really want to spend a lot of time here. So why does it matter for us to develop active readers? I'd like to use 4 phrases, word and phrases here, that to be an active reader means that we will be a literate person, we will be a critical reader, not just a good reader, because basically a good reader is a reader who is critical and analytical. And in relation to school literacy movement or gerakan literasi sekolah, the idea is actually to build or to develop lifelong learners in us. Yeah, so school literacy movement is actually not just for students, but also for teachers. Yeah, teachers are the models anyway. And of course, knowing that reader today is leader tomorrow, we would like to have more responsible leaders in the future by developing active readers within our students and also our kids. I would also like to put active reading, today's topic, in the context of education in Indonesia. As we know, we have gerakan literasi sekolah or school literacy movement, and also gerakan literasi keluarga, family literacy movement, that have been developed and managed by the Ministry of Education and Culture. Yona and I have been, participating in various activities related to gerakan literasi sekolah and gerakan literasi keluarga. But we also learned that in the past year in our educational context, we have been introduced to what we call assessment competency minimum or minimum competency assessment, which although it's not really stated in the document, but we know that it's going to replace ujian nasional, yeah? And it's going to be effective sometime probably in 2 months. So we try to see that, the idea of active reading in this context. So what do we mean by active reader? Basically, we could differentiate active reader from passive reader from, for example, the way they engage with the text. Yeah, an active reader is always engaged with the text, while passive reader does not really observe what he or she is reading, because almost always when they are assigned to read, they will just jump right into reading without previewing, without making prediction, without asking what is going to happen or what is going to be said in a book or in a story. So active readers will engage with the text. They will have desire to find out what is going to be said and what they are going to learn from the book. Yeah, so it works both for fiction and also non-fiction. And as I mentioned earlier, an active reader is also a critical reader who would be able to read critically and analytically. In terms of speed, Dr. Wang mentioned earlier that in extensive reading, students can just read at their own speed, and that goes the same with active reader. An active reader will adjust his or her reading speed based on the significance or the difficulty of the text. But a passive reader, he or she will just read everything at the same speed because the purpose is, I'm just going to be done with it. Yeah, I'll just finish reading this and that's it. So we want to develop, these kinds of readers. However, although we know that parents and teachers are models, I don't think, personally, I don't think we could expect to see our kids or our students imitate the way we read if we don't talk about, books. Yeah, because books are there not just to be read just individually, but as Mbak Adisti said, it has to be shared. And to share about books, we need to connect. Yeah, so these strategies are actually, they are usually used for intensive reading, but it doesn't mean that we cannot use them for post-reading activities after an extensive reading activity. So we have predict, visualize, question, connect, identify, infer, and I cannot see the other one. Let's see. And evaluate. Yeah, but I'll just focus on this strategy, connection or making connection. So let's keep in mind that these strategies do not come naturally, especially for struggling readers. That's why in terms of intensive reading in school, but I also believe that we could do this at home, at least in my experience. These strategies should also be explicitly taught and trained through modeling. Yeah, so this works both for intensive and extensive reading. Now, just a sneak peek about AKM, Assessment Competency Minimum or Minimum Competency Assessment. In AKM, which will be very different probably from UNAS. Yeah, there are 3 cognitive levels that are going to be assessed. The first one is access and retrieve. And then the second level is interpret and integrate. The higher level, the highest one is evaluate and reflect. So if we take a look at the last level, evaluate and reflect, there is no way we would be able to achieve this without developing active readers in our kids and also our students. Yeah, Pusmenjar, Pusat Asesmen dan Pembelajaran, Kemdikbud has a lot of examples of text and items, test items for the practice. So what do we mean by making connections then? Although this is not a theoretical explanation, presentation, but I'd like to just relate this to a reader response theory by Louis Rosenblatt. If you're from literature, I think you're very familiar with this, that when we read, we need to make sense of the books or the novels or any stories or maybe dramas or even movies. Because when we make sense of a text, that means we try to make connection with the text. So how do we make connections? Of course, the easiest one is to text to self, and then text to text, text to word, and just currently there has been this additional point to media. If you search on the internet and then use these keywords, making connection or text connection, we usually come up with these three connections, to text to self, text to text, and text to word. But there have been newer references that also add to media. And that is related to the concept of multimodal text or multimodal literacy, because basically any text, text is anything that has meaning, which includes media. So what do we mean by text connections? Basically, when we make connections with the text that we are reading, it will allow us to better relate and understand ways in which reading connects to our life and our experiences. That's text to self, and also to other texts. It does not only work for fiction, but also non-fiction, informational text. So other forms of literature or any genres. And then it will also help us understand what happens in our society and the world much better. And this is for text to media. How do we see connection between the text that we are reading with other media? It could be film, theater, television, radio, music, songs, spoken words, spoken poetry, that also is included there. So this is just one benefit of using text connection. When we read with our students and also our children, it helps elicit cognitive skills, such as comparing, contrasting, cause and effect, recalling, inferring, synthesizing, evaluating. Basically, whenever we talk about books, we talk about novels or maybe even movies that we watch or even Korean drama that we watch, we can talk about this. We can always make connection with these. So connecting, making connection to elicit thinking skills, but also to stimulate affective response. Yes, I think I've already talked about this. This is a kind of graphic organizer that is really, really useful to help us organize our students' ideas. Dr. Wang has mentioned story map, and story map is one example of graphic organizer that is really useful for metacognitive strategy. So we could use this throughout the reading process, before, during, and after reading. So how does making connection improve comprehension? I'm just going to read this very quickly. If we take a look at this, text and then reader. So that takes us back to reader response criticism. By making connection, by using vocabulary, by talking about topics, prior knowledge will be activated and then comprehension will be improved. I've already talked about this. So yeah, we can also use text connection to invite affective perceptions. How do we feel similarly with the main character if we were placed in the same situation? This is something that we can talk about after reading a book or even after watching a movie. So with that in mind, by making connections, not only that cognitive skills will be stimulated, but also affective perceptions will be encouraged. And in that way, reading will be much more relevant and much more meaningful. So these are some prompts that teachers and parents as well can use whenever we have a book to read together. These prompts are very general, but we can always change this. Yeah, we can always adjust this to be made
Ibu
more.
Tiwi, I'm sorry to
yes?
interrupt. You have 5 minutes remaining.
Oh my
Thank
goodness.
you.
Okay, I'm going to go very quickly. Yeah, so these are some prompts for text to text, and then basically it's the same. How do the ideas in the text remind you of another text? How does the text relate to your own life or experiences? And then how do the ideas in the text relate to the larger world, whether something that happened in the past, the present, or the future, or text to media? How do the ideas in the text remind us of what we saw on TV, commercials, magazines, news, social media even, yeah? We cannot, separate ourselves from social media. So there is always a way to connect the text to media. So how do we do that at home? As I said earlier, parents can and need to model, for young leaders at home during story time. For kids who are not able to read yet, of course, reading aloud would be the answer. But those kids who are already able to read independently, parents still need to invite their kids to talk about the books that they read, because modeling is a powerful instructional technique. So these are some useful steps in modeling text connection. Very simple. Of course, we need to select a text that can help us making connections. Yeah, why is it so? Some texts serve better in making connections. Some others, we cannot just connect, maybe because the culture is too remote, maybe the language is too difficult. And for us to help students to make connection, we have to make our own connections first, and then invite our kids, our children, our students to share their own connection. Now, this is an example of the difference between surface connection and deep connection. For example, I think I have I don't have a book here. Yeah, so for example, we read a book about friendship. A surface connection might just be like this. Well, this book tells about friendship between two girls. I also have a best friend. That is connection, but it is still superficial. But the deep connection can go further by, for example, saying, this book about friendship reminds me of my best friend Ratna. She and I have very little in common, yet she's the one I always turn to whenever I need advice about practically anything. She's really a good listener, and I'm very talkative. However, let's keep in mind that deep connections cannot happen, all of a sudden. It has to begin with surface connection. That's why probing questions, asking questions so that students or children can tell us more will be a good way to do it. Some more examples of making connections, in sentences. What is it? Text to self can be something like this. This story reminds me of a mountain trip to Bromo that I took with my family, just like what happened to the main character, what the main character experiences with her family. Or text to text. Yeah, the second one is a text to text. I read another book about snakes that explained that some snakes are deadly. I am afraid of snakes, so talking about snakes helps me face my fear. And in this book, I'm learning about the top 10 dangerous snakes of the world. So the second one is text to text. The last one is text to media. I saw on the news about people not obeying the rules to wear a mask and maintain physical distancing. And this book tells me that we need to do something to stop COVID-19 from spreading. So this is text to media. I think this is one last example that I would like to share. This is a work from my student. So last semester I taught gender studies, and I used Letters of a Javanese Princess as one of the reading materials. And I invited my students to write questions and respond to their own questions. So here is the question.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to share the 20 minutes is up, so you can.
So this is just the last. So you can take a look at this one. This response is a combination of text to self and also text to self. So whatever challenges we are facing in developing literacy, let's keep calm and make connection. Thank you very much, Mbak Adisti.
Okay, thank you so much, Ibu Tiwi, for the wonderful sharing experiences. And yes, I think from your presentation, we can conclude that reader response criticism and multimodality are can be explored to create better connection. And not only books, reading is actually not always evolve around book, but also evolve around any other types of text, such as movies, Korean dramas, advertisement, and any other media. And remembering about reader response criticism, I remember when I used that approach to teach introduction to literature to non-language students, Ibu Tiwi. And actually the results were actually more than what I expected. Even some of them could create some wonderful connection with Indonesian culture from the text that we use in the classroom. That at that time we use a poem by Langston Hughes. So so I know that it took time for them to understand the text, but after some discussions and involving some more text, questions, probing questions, they were actually successful to make intersections between them, their values, their culture, and the text. And that was a wonderful, wonderful experience using reader response criticism. So thank you so much for also sharing this with us today. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next presenters. So our third speaker, speakers are an adorable pair of a mother and a daughter. So Dr. Yona Primadesi and Abinaya Ghina Jamela, or is often called Naya. Hi, Dr. Yona. Hi, Naya.
Hello.
Hi. Hello. Hi. Really nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. And allow me to introduce both of you to our audience today.
Okay.
Okay. So Dr. Yona is a lecturer of Library and Information Science, Faculty of Languages and Literature in Padang State University. And the courses she has been teaching are children in youth literature, information literacy, resources and description access, and library and information management. And her interest in books and literacy is passed on to her daughter, Naya, who started writing when she was 5 years old. Can you imagine? She started writing when she was 5 years old. She wrote novels, poems, essays, and the pieces that she has been published in many locals and international newspapers. And not only that, Naya also initiated 2 literacy hubs called Yayasan Rumah Kreatif Naya in Padang and Komunitas Sahabat Gorga in Sleman. Am I pronouncing it right? It's Komunitas Sahabat Gorga.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, great. And today, Dr. Yona and Naya will share their stories on best practices on family literacy in developing reading habits. And Naya will be presenting first. Naya will later show you one of her essays titled "Reading and Writing Must Become Habits." Okay, so Naya and Dr. Yona, the time is yours. 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I will,
Thank you.
And I will interrupt you 5 minutes before it was. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adisti. Naya, please first.
I will presenting first. So hello everyone. My name is Naya. So today I'm gonna present about my experience since I was a little. So I'm not talking about literacy or anything. I just talking about my experience. So let me share my screen first. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, Naya, we can see the screen clearly. Yeah.
So like what you know, I am a writer and I read a lot of books in a day. But if you look back around when I was 5 or 4 years old, I have a tablet and I always use my tablet for playing games. So I'm not a reader. I didn't read any books or anything. I'm just playing games. I cannot stay away from my gadget. So every time my mom took my gadget, I always crying or screaming. So I think it's difficult to it's difficult for my mom to took my gadgets away from me. Then what did my mom do, or what did I do to make some distraction so I didn't take the gadgets? First, I visiting new places. I visit new places to get some ideas, like to my mom's university or anything, so I can, some refreshing, And then I paint everything come across me. So if I see trees, I draw trees, because my mom said painting is a great thing. And then I playing new games. I mean, not games, in outdoor games, like Enkle or the other things, because for children, games is most important thing. So children doesn't get bored with writing or painting or writing and the others. And I writing diary too. I took notes of something fun and exciting. When I was 5, I just write maybe 1 sentence or 2 sentences, but because I'm getting older, I started to write maybe 1 page, 2 pages, and the others. And I start reading books. When I was 5, I just read comics. I haven't read some novels like Harry Potter, no. And what type of books do I read? First, I read comics. I just read Doraemon and Detective Conan. It's very great. And then I tried to read encyclopedia. So first, my mom gave me encyclopedia. But first, I think encyclopedia is boring because it just, knowledge and less pictures. But then after I read encyclopedia every day, I realized that encyclopedia, it's not that boring. Encyclopedia can add some knowledge to my brain, And then I start to write novella and novels. La Petite Prince was my first novel that I read, or if in English it's called The Little Prince. Actually, when my mom gave me that novel, I don't want to read it because I think it's, because I was 5, I think the book that have no pictures or less pictures is boring. So that time my mom take me to the cinema and I watched the movie The Little Prince. And then I like the character, the little girl with bandana. And my mom said, "Oh, there is a book, The Little Prince." And then The Little Prince, and my mom said there is the little girl. And then I interested in The Little Prince, but then when I read it, I didn't find any girl in it. And then I tried to read it until the end, but I didn't find any girl. But I realized that reading novel, it's not that bad. There is some, fun adventure in it. And then I tried to read nonfiction books, encyclopedia, and biography, maybe biography of Einstein and the others. And now I start writing. At first, I wrote in my diary. Afterwards, I was taught to write poems. The title is Recipe Membuat Jagat Raya, or Recipe to Make the Universe. That was my first book of poems. And then I motivated to write essays, stories, and novels. And maybe you're asking, why should I write? The first one, a glass filled with water. So imagine if the glass is your brain and the water is knowledge. If you pull the water to the glass without stop, the water will be, you know, spill, and that's happen if you read a lot, you know. And if you want it's not spill, you have to write, you know. And then I want to sharing experience and knowledge to other friends. So the other friends can know what I do, what I know. And then I want to taking out everything from my head. And then the benefits of writing. I publishes my own books, and I can make my mom proud. And I want to inspire other people. I want to learn and attractive topics, new topics. And I can travel around Indonesia and to save some money. So it's very good to writing. And then if some of you want to write, thing that you have to do is write. Just write and don't think of anything else. Just write what in your head. And then you have to read every type of books, non-fiction, fiction, comics, or anything. And then you have to look at your surroundings. You have to look at people so you can write it on your right. And then you have to dare to dispose on unintended writing. But if your child doesn't like writing, you don't have to push your child to write. Your child has some talent, you know. Your child just have to make out the talents from your child. There is some child that talented to dancing, writing, and photography, and the others. So if your child doesn't like to write, don't push him or her to write. Me and the Gorga's friend. The Gorga's friend helps children to write, to produce high quality books, and to publish their writing. So here is our activities: go to school and help children to write. And thank you and keep writing. That's all for me. So my mom have a lot of time to present. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Naya. I think I just have a tiny time, but I try more. Pardon me, for this time, I will present my paper in Indonesian. I think I just more comfort to talk in Indonesia. Okay. Tadi Naya sudah bercerita tentang aktivitas dia dan bagaimana memulai itu. Gitu. Jadi saya akan coba memberi sedikit clue bagaimana Naya bisa bergerak seperti itu. Kemudian juga kami sudah mempraktikannya pada beberapa teman di sekolah melalui komunitas Sahabat Gorga. Tapi sebelum itu ada satu hal, karena kita bicara mengenai gap antara literasi di sekolah dan literasi di keluarga. Memang ada satu hal yang menjadi concern kita semua, bahwa tidak adanya atau kurangnya atau minimnya kesinambungan kegiatan literasi antara apa yang sudah dilakukan di keluarga dengan kemudian apa yang harus dilanjutkan di sekolah. Lalu concern yang kedua adalah pola pendidikan urban. Kita tidak boleh naif bahwa pola pendidikan urban itu sangat mengontrol anak-anak, kemudian juga mencoba untuk menyeragamkan anak-anak dan mendominasi bagaimana anak-anak harus berlaku dan bertindak. Itu adalah fenomena yang terjadi dalam dunia pendidikan akhir-akhir ini. Sehingga kemudian yang coba kami lakukan di lingkungan keluarga, yaitu yang pertama memberikan anak ruang untuk belajar yang lebih kontekstual, belajar sesuai dengan apa yang terdekat dengan dia, bukan apa yang paling jauh dengan dia gitu. Sehingga kemudian misal di situasi pandemi saat ini dia bisa memanfaatkan apa saja materi yang ada di sekitar. Kemudian juga kegiatan belajar yang membebaskan. Mungkin tadi Naya belum bercerita bagaimana dinding kamarnya penuh dengan coretan yang itu kemudian melahirkan buku keempatnya, novel Rahasia Negeri OSI. Lalu juga kita perlu memberi concern atau perhatian lebih terhadap kreativitas anak. Ini yang selama ini kurang. Jadi ada sebuah pengalaman yang sering kali kami temukan ketika berkunjung ke sekolah-sekolah, ketika anak diminta untuk membuat sebuah puisi mereka selalu diawali oleh kata artikel oh guru, oh ibu, oh ayah, dan kemudian selalu diakhiri oleh kata terima kasih. Itu sangat sering sekali kami temukan, dan itu sifatnya sangat seragam gitu. Lalu menjadi pertanyaan, apa yang menyebabkan ini terjadi? Ternyata ruang kebebasan berekspresi, ruang kreativitas itu sangat-sangat dibatasi, sehingga kemudian keseragaman seperti itu terjadi. Lalu tadi juga Bu Tiwi bilang bagaimana untuk mendorong anak agar berpikir kritis dan analitis. Membaca bukan hanya sekedar berapa banyak buku yang kamu baca, akan tetapi kemudian bagaimana kamu menarik relasi antara apa yang kamu baca dengan kemudian fenomena yang ada di sekitarmu, kemudian dengan persoalan-persoalan yang harus kamu selesaikan. Dan itu semua menurut pendapat saya dan juga Bu Tiwi dan semua pasti setuju diawali oleh rumah, oleh keluarga, oleh ayah dan ibu. Kenapa? Karena sekolah yang paling pertama bagi anak-anak adalah keluarganya, adalah ayah dan ibu. Dan di sini pondasi awal itu perlu untuk dibangun. Lalu apa yang harus dilakukan oleh keluarga dalam hal ini sebelum anak dilepaskan ke lingkungan sekolah? Seperti tadi yang disampaikan oleh Maya, yang pertama yang kami kedepankan adalah bermain. Bahwa setiap aktivitas anak, defaultnya anak itu adalah bermain. Jadi apapun kegiatan, entah itu membaca, entah itu menulis, entah itu praktik sains, itu harus dengan aktivitas bermain. Misal ketika Naya belajar menulis, bagaimana cara membuat metafor? Kami tidak memulai dengan metafor adalah tidak. Kami berjalan-jalan, kemudian melihat sebuah objek atau sebuah peristiwa, lalu kami minta Naya untuk mencari relasi atau koheren, entah itu bunyi, entah itu suara, entah itu bentuk, entah itu warna, dengan benda lain. Misal yang paling sering dan paling suka Naya kutip itu adalah ketika dia melihat sawah yang kering. Ayo Nay, apa metafor? Bikin koherensinya apa? Oh, wafer seperti petak sawah yang kering, dan dia selesai membuat satu metafor untuk puisinya gitu. Dan itu diawali oleh kegiatan bermain di luar ruangan. Outdoor activity itu sangat penting untuk anak-anak. Lalu yang kedua, pendekatan seni rupa. Kenapa saya katakan pendekatan seni rupa itu sangat penting? Karena misal ketika kita ingin menguasai sesuatu, kita harus paham dulu konsep. Nah, selama ini yang terjadi di sekolah adalah anak dituntut untuk menghafal, bukan memahami konsep. Nah, di dalam seni rupa, kita juga diajarkan untuk memahami konsep. Misal, dalam seni rupa yang pertama kali perlu dipelajari adalah bagaimana membuat garis. Anak belajar membuat garis lurus, sampai benar-benar terlatih. Kemudian garis lengkung. Nah, itu adalah konsep bahwa setiap benda, apapun yang ada di dunia ini berasal dari garis. Nah, konsep-konsep seperti itu yang kemudian lewat seni rupa kami tarik kepada anak-anak. Misal, seperti tadi, novel Naya, Rahasia Negeri OSI, itu muncul dari aktivitas dia menggambar. Jadi Naya itu sangat suka mencoret-coret dinding kamarnya, sehingga dinding kamarnya itu penuh dengan gambar. Lalu kami berpikir, kenapa itu dibiarkan saja? Kenapa kemudian itu tidak diarahkan untuk menjadikan suatu hal yang bermanfaat, yang lebih produktif? Lalu kemudian kami menyediakan sebuah kertas yang besar, lalu kami tempel di dinding. Kami bilang kepada Naya, Naya, tolong pindahkan semua gambar-gambar yang ada di dinding ke kertas ini. Lalu dia memindahkan satu-satu, diberi kolom kecil-kecil. Setelah itu kami memberikan Naya sebuah buku. Naya, tolong ceritakan atau tolong deskripsikan karakter-karakter yang ada. Misal ketika dia ada tokoh yang bernama Trakus, Trakus itu berwarna-warni. Naya, kenapa dia bisa berwarna-warni? Apa sebabnya? Maka kemudian Naya mulai membangun cerita. Ada sebab, ada narasi di situ. Nah, di situ kami merasa bahwa pentingnya kolaborasi seni rupa. Lalu juga bacaan sastra. Mungkin Bu Tiwi lebih paham kenapa sastra itu perlu dikenalkan dari awal kepada anak-anak. Karena itu dapat membangun empati dan simpati anak terhadap berbagai hal gitu, karena sastra itu merupakan representasi dari dunia nyata. Lalu juga kami mengajarkan filsafat. Sebenarnya bagi sebagian orang tua, bagi sebagian keluarga, filsafat itu kadang-kadang diabaikan, tetapi menurut kami itu penting. Dalam hal ini konteks filsafat adalah konteks bagaimana kemudian anak berpikir kritis, anak memiliki cara berpikir yang sistematis, anak mempertanyakan banyak hal. Itu menjadi hal yang penting. Jadi kami tidak akan menemukan lagi jawaban kenapa hujan turun. Oh, karena Allah. Nah, cara berpikir yang seperti itu perlu dipangkas, bahwa di setiap tindakan ada sebab, ada akibat, dan itu yang diajarkan, bagaimana cara berpikir yang demikian. Lalu juga teks-teks kultural, maksudnya teks-teks kultural di sini adalah teks-teks yang terdekat dengan anak. Jadi selama pandemi, berbagai persoalan yang muncul adalah pertama, awal-awal pandemi akses terhadap bahan bacaan, harga buku yang tidak terjangkau karena banyak orang tua yang kemudian mengalami masalah ekonomi. Lalu kami berangkat dari pemahaman kenapa kita tidak memanfaatkan teks kultural kita. Misal sekarang Naya sedang mencoba untuk mengadopsi mitos-mitos yang ada di Indonesia untuk menjadi bahan dalam tulisannya, untuk menjadi bahan perbandingan. Karena dia suka, seperti tadi dia bilang, suka baca Harry Potter, suka baca Isabel Allende gitu ya. Dia kemudian belajar mengcompare, apa sih beda antara mitos yang ada di Indonesia kemudian dengan yang ada di negara lain, misal di Amerika Latin atau di Eropa sana gitu. Jadi pemanfaatan teks-teks kultural itu sangat penting. Dan kemudian yang
Dr. Yona, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
Not about the time, but I think your slides is stuck.
No. It's still in the same slide. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Lalu kemudian perlu adanya diskusi. Nah, diskusi di sini seringkali proses belajar membaca atau proses menanamkan kebiasaan membaca kepada anak itu berlangsung satu arah. Orang tua atau guru kemudian hanya sekedar ayo kamu membaca, ayo kamu banyak membaca. Tapi kemudian diskusi-diskusi yang membangun tidak diciptakan. Jadi saya tarik lagi ke pengalaman saya dengan Naya, kami selalu punya waktu untuk membaca bersama. Jadi apa buku yang dia baca, kemudian saya juga baca. Setelah itu kemudian kami akan berdiskusi. Misal yang kemarin dibicarakan ketika dia membaca buku Isabel Allende dan The Uncle Tom Cabin, kemudian dia bertanya, bagaimana dengan sistem perbudakan? Kenapa perbudakan itu bisa terjadi? Kenapa orang kulit putih merasa bahwa mereka lebih tinggi secara hierarki dibandingkan orang-orang kulit berwarna? Pertanyaan-pertanyaan itu akan muncul dan itu perlu diberikan jawaban. Makanya ruang diskusi dalam proses membaca itu sangat-sangat penting dan menjadi kunci. Makanya ketika kita bicara literasi, kita tidak hanya bicara bagaimana proses membaca, tetapi bagaimana sebelum membaca dan sesudah membaca. Kenapa? Karena membaca itu yang pertama adalah pembiasaan. Nah, sayangnya di Indonesia kebanyakan kegiatan literasi kita berhenti sampai di sini. Pembiasaan. Hanya sekedar bagaimana meningkatkan minat baca, kemudian bagaimana membuat tradisi membaca, tetapi belum kepada pengembangan dan pembelajaran. bagaimana
Yona,
kemudian
now, I'm sorry to interrupt. Yes, now it's 5 minutes remaining. Okay, thank you.
Oke. Yes, okay. Nah, bagaimana kemudian apa yang dia baca relate dengan keadaan sekitar, apa yang dia baca kemudian bisa menghasilkan sesuatu yang bernilai sosial dan ekonomi bagi anak-anak. Nah, ini tentu saja disebabkan oleh selama ini kita concern-nya kepada faktor eksternal daripada membaca, bahwa bagaimana menyediakan buku yang bagus, buku yang berkualitas, akan tetapi kita melupakan faktor internal. Bagaimana anak-anak, apa yang disukai anak-anak, apa yang diharapkan anak-anak dari membaca. Lalu juga selama ini anak sebagai target sasaran. Apapun yang dilakukan oleh anak itu sangat bergantung kepada keyakinan, kemudian pedagogikal orang tua gitu. Nah, itu yang kemudian menyebabkan paradigma tadi. Oke. Sehingga kemudian dalam banyak pengalaman di lapangan dan hasil disertasi saya, jadi ada sebuah pola komunikasi yang perlu kita kedepankan. Saya memberi nama Bona. Ada yang pertama background. Background di sini adalah bahwa ketika kita melakukan setiap praktik literasi, kita harus mempertimbangkan bahwa setiap anak berbeda. Berbeda latar belakang ekonomi, sosial, budaya, pendidikan, demografi, sehingga kemudian keseragaman itu tidak bisa kita tuntut. Ketika kita ingin mengembangkan kompetensi literasi anak, kita harus memperhatikan background anak. Background anak nanti akan berhubungan dengan teks-teks kultural yang akan kita kenalkan. Lalu juga originality, sifat dasar anak. Anak itu suka bermain. Ini yang sering kali kita lupakan, terutama di sekolah-sekolah milik pemerintah. Anak itu sangat suka berkompetisi. Anak itu sangat egosentris. Tadi seperti Naya presentasi, lalu itu adalah salah satu bukti bahwa ada sikap egosentris dan anak itu pengen bercerita tentang dirinya gitu. Dan itu harus menjadi concern kita bersama. Lalu ada negosiasi. Negosiasi di sini maksudnya ada semacam tarik ulur antara anak dengan orang tua. Selama ini itu tidak muncul. Jadi ketika orang tua bilang jangan, maka itu jangan. Ketika orang tua bilang ini harus, maka itu harus. Sementara proses negosiasi kenapa itu jangan? Apakah anak punya tawaran lain? Itu seringkali diabaikan. Sehingga kemudian maksimalisasi dari proses literasi itu tidak terjalan, internalisasi nilai itu tidak maksimal. Lalu ketika negosiasi sudah bisa maksimal, maka asosiasi akan tercipta. Apapun yang akan dilakukan akan mudah. Nah, itu sudah kami buktikan kepada Naya dan kepada anak-anak lainnya bahwa ketika negosiasi sudah tercipta, ketika kami bilang seperti tadi dia cerita, Le Petit Prince, aku dibohongin sama bunda gitu. Bahwa ada gadis berbandana, ternyata tidak, karena ada negosiasi dan akhirnya dia selesai membaca buku itu gitu. Nah, ini Bu Tiwi sering sekali bilang bahwa ketika membangun literasi, keterampilan literasi anak tidak hanya sekedar buku. Saya lebih mengedepankan yang paling awal itu adalah orality, karena kalau di dalam keterampilan berbahasa kita ada mendengarkan, berbicara, kemudian membaca, menulis, dan mempresentasikan. Jadi kelisanan itu sangat penting. Saya kemudian berusaha di setiap pertemuan, kita butuh, anak-anak butuh orang tua yang pembual dalam tanda kutip, orang tua yang suka bercerita, orang tua yang suka mendongeng, bukan sekedar membacakan gitu ya, tetapi menarik hal-hal. Dan itu sering kami lakukan dengan Naya, menceritakan banyak hal tentang masa kecil dan kemudian dia mengadopsi itu dan mengembangkan itu menjadi materinya. Lalu juga bahan kaya teks, tulisan, dan buku. Nah, ini kerangka ORIM bahwa anak butuh kesempatan, anak butuh pengakuan, interaksi, dan keteladanan. Diharapkan dengan semua kegiatan itu, maka akan memunculkan pengalaman yang bermakna dan menyenangkan bagi anak, dan juga karya unik berdaya ekonomi dan sosial. Saya rasa karena waktu saya terbatas, jadi saya 50 km per jam. Mungkin nanti bisa kita lanjutkan di sesi tanya jawab. Sekian, terima kasih.
Okay, exactly 25 minutes, Dr. Yona. Excellent. I was about to say that the time is up, but yeah, you stopped before I got to say that to you. Okay. Okay, so I would like to, I think all audience also agree that we would like to say thank you, Naya, for inspiring us to keep writing. And it is amazing that Naya can already make sense to the world through reading and writing activities. And even Naya earlier mentioned this awareness that writing might generate profit and save money. So it also can be also a motivation for us to actually keep writing, actually, Dr. Yona. And well done, Naya. And from Dr. Yona, we learned that encouraging learners to have more meaningful and enjoyable reading experiences cannot leave the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. And one other C, contextual. So that makes 5 C's in the activities. Even though it starts from learning, with such fun activities, learners would certainly develop connection, and the learning becomes a part of learners' habit. And so the takeaways were read together, set examples for these readers, relate to what they have in mind, relate to what they like, relate to their world, and open the room for discussions to negotiate, to create connection deeper between text they read and their world. Yeah, Dr. Yona. Yeah. So that are the wonderful presentation from our beloved speakers. Now we open question and answers. A lot of questions and answers already are already written there in Zoom chat box and also on YouTube comment sections. And I think some of them are similar, saying contextually. So I would like to, maybe I would not mention the name. There are so many questions from Annie, Heli, and Nancy Tan, from Hani, Ika Setiawati, and so many more. But here, I already conclude the question so we can save more time and many questions can be answered. I think these speakers can also answer the questions, in my opinion, because it's all related to their presentation. So the first questions will be, what is the tool to measure literacy progress? And can we apply the same strategies for readers with different level or age? Like, can we use puppet stage for little readers? So that would be question number 1. Maybe later, should I read all the questions and after that maybe? Okay, so that's question number 1. And questions number 2, how to involve parents more effectively in this matter to keep the reading experiences sustainable? Because you know, some of the questions said that it is difficult to sustain reading activities without parents helping, without parents' assistance. Yeah. And number 3, how to cope, how to deal with the gap between the kid who has high literacy activity at home, but low literacy activity at schools. So how to bridge the gap. And question number 4, I will later on repeat. Question number 4, which one is better to be introduced earlier to kids, the e-material or the printed material? And which types of reading that can be given for passive readers? And so, and actually, in what level can we introduce multimodality to be discussed with students? And question number 5, how do you encourage passive readers to make text connections? Yeah. So those are the questions from, I wrap up some of the questions because I think some of them are similar to one another. So I apologize for the audience for not mentioning your name, because so that your questions can be answered by these speakers. So please, perhaps for the first questions, what is a tool to measure literacy progress, you know, at home? And can we apply the same strategies for readers with different level or age? Can we use puppet stage for little readers? Maybe maybe Dr. Wang first can answer, and then later on maybe Ibu Tiwi and Dr. Yona can add some more information, and also Naya with their experience. Thank you.
So the first question is about assessment of like literacy progress, right?
Yeah.
So I think the answers can be varied, and also it depends on the time and also the instruction time for teachers as educators. But there are different ways we can do. So like Naya is writing stories. So can we say she's not literate? She is putting herself into a writer's perspective, and she know how to take from author's perspective, and she know maybe she's taking a narrator's perspective. So this is kind of cool. So if we are spending more time with our students, and sometimes if you have like students, they have lower language levels, I would say that just you can start with your native mother tongue language. Talk about a book and then also ask them to show different ways. For example, one of the questions is about multimodal literacy. Just when can we share this with you? They are actually learning and seeing this every day. Like comic books is one form, and there are a lot of infographic poster things. So these are all the things we don't have to really ask them to write something. Speak out and share their opinions, choose a music, even a color to show their emotions. And also, this is how I feel when I listen to this part of the story, and why do you think so? I think these are all different ways you can use to assess students' literacy progress. Yeah, so this is my answer.
Yeah, so involving many other types of materials, yeah, like music. What about the perspective from other speakers? Please. Perhaps you have additional insight for this question? The strategies, the tool to measure literacy progress.
Am I supposed to talk right now?
No, I mean, maybe some other speakers can jump in to add some more.
Okay, Mbak, I could probably add. So assessing literacy, this is really a tricky question because I don't really expect uniformity here, especially when we talk about making connection. Once we decide to use making connections as the strategy, then we need to be ready to to receive various responses, agreement, disagreement. So there is no way that, for example, we have a rubric. Even when we have a rubric, we cannot expect to have uniform answers or responses from our students. Otherwise, make a connection will just fail. And the idea of being critical is not only to say, answer the questions using evidence, for instance, but at least, when you have an opinion, if you could justify this using evidence, then yeah, we need to accept that, although we may disagree with that.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so,
this,
sorry.
yeah.
Yes,
So this might be one thing that we tend to forget, especially in gerakan literasi sekolah with book clubs, when students are invited to talk about books, but because maybe teachers or parents do not really model how to talk about books, so we could invite debates, positive debates. We will end up having students with what Yona already gave us the example, writing poem. Oh, Ibu, oh, Ayah. This is because from the very beginning, that may have been the model that we showed. So in short, if we want to assess literacy, the question is, what do we want to assess? I would say performance assessment would just be best here.
Okay.
Not the one that is quantitative.
Yeah, and also I think the reader mentors or parents should also be really flexible and contextual and aware of the fact that there are so many interests of the readers. Yeah, so we really need to be aware and really need to relate with the context. Okay, so go along for the second questions. How to involve parents effectively and how to cope with the gap. So there are two conditions here, like, so these learners or readers have high literacy at home, but low literacy at schools, and how to involve parents in that kind of situation. So that will be answering number 1, 2, and 3.
Would you like Yona to answer this?
Dr. Yona or Ibu Tiwi?
Well, I guess I'd like to say this to everyone, that even for somebody, if you see yourself as a literate person, as a literacy activist, it does not mean that you have no problems at home. Yeah, Yona has the example. I also have the example. I mean, I struggled for a couple of years to encourage my two kids to read, but in the long run, if we just read with them, we talk about books, and when I say we talk about books, it's not like we sort of interview the kids. Yeah, just this morning, I had a conversation with my 14-year-old daughter in her bedroom. So now she's really into manga, comic manga. So I asked her, what is it about manga that you like most? What is your favorite? What makes you interested in this? Her response is really surprising to me, because she said this, Mom, it's because, I like Chainsaw. I have never read this, but she said, I like Chainsaw because the female characters there are not sexualized. I was surprised that she picked up that word. What makes you think so? Well, you see on TV or commercials, itu iklan-iklan, you see how women are always, the sexual objects. So, but in this story, women are heroes. They are represented as people. Oh, so that's really amazing. But I thought this response did not come out of the blue, because I remember when she was, I think, 6 years old, when we were still in Melbourne, we did talk about beauty standard, because her skin is, just like Indonesian people. Whenever somebody said, well, your skin looks darker, I think you need to stay at home more. Don't stay under the sun too much. You know what she said? Why bother about being white? I'm also beautiful. And she said that when she was still 6 years old. I just thought, what on earth did she say something like this? But some students who often came to my house for consultations some years ago, they said, Pratiwi, she may have overheard our conversation when we talked about white beauty standard or beauty myth. She may have picked up all the ideas. So I think now she's really firm about women becoming strong people by not being sexualized. My goodness, yeah. So this is just one thing that may happen it may take a number of years to have something like this to happen.
Oh, that is nice then. Yeah. It also can teach equity, equality to them too. Yeah, that is nice. Okay, so moving on to the next question, because we only have limited time. I'm so sorry. And maybe after this, each speaker can answer a little bit of the questions written in the chat box, because later on the committee will wrap the questions there. Yeah, so maybe Dr. Wang, Dr. Yona, and Pratiwi can also see the questions on the chat box and try to answer something. But there is one more question here that I will read. So which material is better to be introduced earlier to kids, the e-materials or the printed materials, and how to encourage passive readers to make the text connection and to keep the motivation higher. Actually, how to motivate the passive reader to create connection, to keep reading, and so which materials is better to be introduced to the early stage readers, the e-material or the printed material? Okay, so I think Dr. Yona can answer this one.
I try answer this question. Okay. Mana yang lebih dulu dikenalkan sebaiknya, printed material atau e-material? Saya termasuk orang yang sangat konvensional, ya. Jadi untuk range umur tertentu, karena kita ada screen time ya, bahwa anak umur 7 tahun maksimal itu misalnya hanya 1 jam. Nah itu sudah di hasil riset. Kemudian juga anak usia dasar yang paling penting itu adalah motorik. Nah kemudian juga bagaimana membangun pengalaman. Jadi kenapa ketika usia 5 tahun kemudian kami mensterilkan semua aktivitas Naya dari gadget, tujuannya untuk itu. Agar pengalaman membaca itu menjadi sesuatu hal yang menyenangkan. Jadi kami masih mengedepankan printed material untuk literasi dini, baru kemudian ketika mereka benar-benar sudah mendapatkan pengalaman belajar yang luar biasa, itu baru bisa dilanjutkan ke e-material. Akan tetapi kemudian dalam perkembangannya kita mengenal yang namanya multimoda, ya apa saja bisa kemudian menjadi bahan, terutama di masa pandemi sekarang gitu ya. Kita nggak mungkin ke perpustakaan atau misalnya biaya buku mahal gitu. Nah ini bisa kita siasati dengan memberi ruang yang sama, akan tetapi tetap dalam batas pengawasan gitu. Karena memang bagaimanapun perkembangan teknologi itu tidak bisa kita tutup, tidak bisa kita halangi. Bagaimanapun kita pasti masuk ke masa disrupsi informasi itu gitu. Nah itu kemudian juga tadi ada pertanyaan bagaimana mensiasati gap ya antara apa yang sudah dilakukan di keluarga dan apa yang sudah yang kemudian di sekolah gitu. Sama seperti yang disampaikan Bu Tiwi, proses keberlanjutan itu bukan sesuatu hal yang mudah. Kadang-kadang apa yang sudah kita bangun di lingkungan keluarga itu bisa biar rusak begitu saja ketika anak masuk sekolah pendidikan formal gitu. Oleh karena itu sangat penting fungsinya orang tua dalam benar-benar membangun fondasi yang kokoh ketika anak masih di rumah, maksudnya masih di dalam pengawasan penuh orang tua sebelum kemudian mereka terjun ke lingkungan sosial yang lebih besar. Kira-kira seperti itu.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yona. So, the printed material is actually suggested, suggested for the first, for the early stage grade, yes. And once they know how to, at least how to connect the text with their world, so we can further give e-material. But since the pandemic, I think parents or reader mentor can also have to be really strategic and also have to be really contextual, because we cannot also push the same strategy over and over if it doesn't really connect with the context. So what's the point of forcing the strategy? And also to create the bridge, the gap, between the gap of low literacy students at schools, but high literacy students at home. So of course, the role of parents are really taken into account there. So they really need to build foundation so the students can have this, so the learners or the readers can have this, at least a motivation to keep the continuity to read. The willingness to read, constant willingness to read. Not only the willingness at one point and one at a time and then it's gone. So I think not only for little readers, Dr. Yona, but also for adult readers, it's really difficult to maintain that constant willingness to read. There's so much distraction, but so I'm so grateful with the term multimodality. So for adult readers, so we do not feel guilty if we cannot finish some books now, but we can also make use of like the movies or podcasts, because I believe that during the pandemic there are a lot of podcasts out there, and some of the podcasts are really insightful.
Tetapi sorry aku potong. Tetapi membaca dari sumber primer itu tetap menjadi acuan.
That's why I told earlier that we do not feel that guilty. we still need to read books, butnya digedein itu. But reading books, it becomes the primary suggestions for for the whole experience. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Even though there is a word called multimodality, that we are allowed to use any types of materials to encourage learners to read. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you so much for wonderful insights, and I think I believe that we are now learning so much here in these sections, in this virtual talk, the 22nd, and I see some of the positive remark in the chat box, and we are so grateful to have you all here. Thank you so much for sharing. And yes, and I'm really sorry to keep interrupting you when the time came. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Julia. As MC, yeah, I return. Yes, thank you so much. Julia, I return the section to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Adesti Komalasari. It is a great opportunity to have shared these sessions with the honorable speakers, panelists, and IERA members, the moderator, and all participants who have contributed in today's event. Closing this event today, we will have a remark from Vice Rector of Academic Affairs, Krida, Wacana Christian University, Dr. Lydia Sandra, SPSI, SCOM, MCOM, NSC. Ibu Lydia Sandra, the time and screen is yours.
Thank you, Ibu Lia. Before this event comes to a close, I'd like to thank all of the parties who take the initiative to make this event possible. Great thanks to all of our honorable presenters today for bringing good insight to all of us. Dr. Yuchi Wang from Feng Chia University, Taiwan. Ibu Pratiwi Retnaningdyah, Ph.D. from Universitas Negeri Surabaya. Dr. Yona dari Universitas Negeri Padang, and Abinaya Ghina Jamela, young author and founder of Sahabat Gorga, if I'm not mistaken. Well, Ibu Bapak, Indonesia currently ranked like 62 out of 70 countries in the literacy levels. Well, frankly speaking, this is very sad. We are like at the bottom 10 in the literacy levels in the world. So, but it's not about how Indonesia ranks in the world with the literacy level, but the problem is much deeper than that, I believe. Without enabling our children to be active readers, somehow, and bridging the homeschool literacy gap, we are taking away the opportunity of them getting more knowledge, and also limiting their world and hindering their understanding and exploring world as much as they can actually. And somehow, without doing this, closing the literacy gap, we are ruining a generation. Well, it's very important that this message, that this somehow amanah, we call it, to be continued with the next talk and so on. It is very crucial. The insights that I gained from all of the speakers, that we need to bridge the gap between home and school literacy. And we have learned today that we, school and parents, can make a good collaboration to close this gap and bringing the knowledge as much as possible to our children. Well, at the university level, we are happy that we have like a kind of program that was right now that also education, university, but also I believe university as well as we have some centers. We call it Center of Development that focus on literacy of our children. So hopefully this event somehow like sparking the inspiration of each one of us to contribute more in the bridging the gap of literacy level for our beloved children. I would like to thank also from our leaders from Sampoerna University, Bapak Rektor of Sampoerna University, Dr. Wahdi Yudi, President of Sampoerna University, Dr. Marshall Scott, and Bapak Vice Rector of Academic Affairs, Bapak Supriyatna, Dr. Brett from US Embassy Jakarta. You are still here. I can feel your passion for literacy for children. And also for Ibu Fenty Siregar as the chairperson of IERA. So lastly, I really hope this event can spark our insight to bring so I hope all of us stay healthy and well with very hard. So thank you all of the participants, the presenters, the hosts, the speakers.
Thank you, Ibu Lydia. In order to see more of these events in the future, we also will have important remarks and announcements from Ibu Fenty Siregar, Ph.D. as a chairperson of IERA. Ibu Fenty, the time and screen is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm sure everyone has learned a lot from our speakers today. And today I would like to give you some announcements regarding the upcoming event that Extensive Reading Foundations will hold in August. Ibu, could you please share the screen? Okay, so in August, specifically on 13 until 15 August, Extensive Reading Foundations will hold a congress, a seminar. And then for this seminar, we have we got sponsor from Reload, and then with that, with the grant that they gave to us, we will give 400 free coupons for teachers or for all for all people who are interested in extensive reading to join the event. So maybe we can go to the next slide. So so after this event, if you are interested in joining this conference, please make sure that you complete the form that we gave here on the slide, and then even though we have 40 free coupons, I'm sure that many people will join. So make sure that you complete the form as fast as you can. And then later on, after you complete the form, you will receive an email. Then you can just follow the instructions that will be given on that email. So please write down the link if you are interested in joining this event. Okay, once again, this event and then these free coupons is sponsored by the Regional English Language Office, U.S. Embassy in Indonesia. So thanks to them, we can give you 40 free coupons. Let me maybe type as well the link so that it will be easier for you to complete the form. Okay, can you see the link? Yeah. So once again, if you are not teachers, you can still join this because this is for everyone who is interested in extensive reading. However, you should be Indonesian to join to get this free coupon. So if you are not Indonesian, maybe you can take a look at the Extensive Reading Foundation's Facebook, whether or not they also offer the same thing for other nationalities. I think that's all for my information. Once again, thank you for joining our virtual talks, and I'll just give the floor back to the MC.
Thank you, Ibu Fenty. This 22nd virtual talk is a joint webinar hosted by English Literature Krida Wacana Christian University and English Language Education Sampoerna University in collaboration with Indonesian Extensive Reading Association IERA and supported by Extensive Reading Foundation and also Regional English Language Office, RELO. Again, thank you to all the committees, lecturers, and students for taking your time and dedication in arranging such a great event. Your participation is highly appreciated. We are almost in the end of our session and our event today, but do not go just yet. Before you leave, do not forget to fill out the exit form, which will be provided in the chat box and also in the slide. All participants should or can also access the materials and certificates through the links right after you complete the exit form. Please note that you have to use personal email to fill in the exit ticket. The certificate will be sent automatically to your email once you submit the exit ticket. If you still haven't received the certificate within 2 hours, please contact our contact person as in the monitor. Exit ticket link will be opened until 2 o'clock on Jakarta time this afternoon. And that's not all, ladies and gentlemen. Please take a virtual group picture. To all participants, please turn on your video because we are going to capture your faces as well. Since we have about 128 persons in the room, please make sure that you are in your greatest pose and hold. Okay, I will let Timoteo Siahitaher to please start capturing our picture.
Okay, dear participants, allow me to take your pictures. So please, for all of the participants, you may start turning on your camera and I will take your pictures. There will be 3 slides on this taking picture session. So I will take the picture 3 times. Please hold your pose for 3 times. Okay, so I will start by taking the picture on the first slide. So for the first slide, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so for the second slide, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and for the last slide, 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's done. Thank you for everyone.
Thank you, Timo. Well, that's wrapping up our event today. On behalf of ukrida-sampoerna University, thank you to all speakers and participants for making time to join us here today. We would like to thank Indonesian Extensive Reading Association, Extensive Reading Foundation, and RELO for the tremendous support. Thank you and see you all. Do not forget to always a book here with you everywhere.